Welcome to the Webinar Talk Show. I'm Liz Green.
And I'm Tom Singer. And Eliz and I started this show because we really believe that webinars and conferences and keynotes and trainings, they could be a lot better than a talking head over PowerPoint.
Absolutely. This environment, I'm becoming more and more excited about what is possible in this virtual or even hybrid environment, really leaning into what we can do with video. And in our theme of don't cancel your event, don't cancel your in-person event, your people need you.
Hashtag
here,
don't cancel your event.
Absolutely. We have an amazing guest today who really is an expert. One of the things that her company does is help businesses really deliver their message through video. She also is all about helping ambitious women who are content creators really get their full-time freedom. All of those things are very cool. What I think is very cool is I got to have our guest on a panel for our NSA National Convention a couple of years ago, and she is brilliant when it comes to how to create content that is so very valuable to a very specific audience. And isn't that all of our jobs? I'm excited for this conversation. Welcome to the Webinar Talk Show, Amy Landino.
Welcome, Amy.
Hello. Thank you so much for having me, Liz. Tom, good to see you.
Good to see you.
It is exciting to have you. It's fun to sit next to you, but I'll take this because video doesn't have to be sort of the sad second cousin to an in-person event. So let's talk a little bit about your production side of the business to start with. I know you've worked with clients over the years for in-person events. What happened when we all stopped having those? What did you see happening with your clients?
Yeah, we obviously in business, this has been a really crazy year in general, but when is it not a crazy year? We have curveballs all the time. I think that that's one of the biggest lessons everyone's learning this year is it's always going to be a little bit of a weird time. And that's just how it is. There is no going back to normal anymore. So it's always how do we continue to make this experience right for the communities that we work for? So for us over at Aftermark, which is the company that I work with my husband, he's really running the show over there. He's the CEO, and we've traditionally done a lot of event production. So if you're doing your annual event or you're doing your smaller events throughout the year, we'll come in and we will help you to communicate that message of what's happening in that space to the digital world in real time. We're not doing that, clearly. I don't think we got any of those off the ground. I don't think we ended up doing a single one by the time we really knew what we were in for in late or early spring. But our clients knew that they could not hashtag cancel their event. We can't do that. We have to really make sure that our clients know that we care about them. We're still here for them. We don't not know how to serve them just because we don't have a place to put lights up and a stage and keynote speakers. We can still find a way to do this differently. And we really had to get very creative. But yeah, so we pivoted in a way, but all along we really have been specialists in live streaming and video production for the majority of the business that we've been in now for, I think it's been about 5 years in business. So with that, we really just were right there on speed dial to say, it's okay. Let me tell you how to zhuzh up your office a little bit, get the camera set up. And we're still essentially live streaming, but we're going to have to do it from a different location. And we have to then get more creative about how you make the content relevant when you're doing that.
Have you found that some people are video wary? They've been sort of scared to actually push the button and go live on video? Or are most people by this point just diving in and doing video?
You really do have to take that into consideration. It doesn't matter what year it is or how long we've all had smartphones at this point. You're still going to have people specifically at the executive level who are not hesitant about getting on camera in some cases, and some cases they are. But either way, they really do need to be coached a little bit of like, what does it mean to speak to a camera and make it come off the way it would in a personal conversation, which is something that I've specialized in for a long time. I think that's the number one tip I could ever share with anyone ever. It doesn't matter what camera you have. It doesn't matter how long you studied your script. If you can't look at the camera like it's just one person that you would help, the video in general is probably not going to be that good, because what are the alternatives? You're talking to yourself. That's for most people not natural. You're talking to millions of people. That's like really scary for most. Or, you're talking to your mom or your best friend who thinks you're weird. And so that's not the same dynamic as I understand who I serve. I understand what they need from me and the message they need to hear. And I'm going to do that in an effective way. Just being able to look at the lens that way is a tremendous feat for most, but just a little bit of coaching goes a long way on that.
So this is a good segue to something I really wanted to talk about today, because you're talking about having somebody on the other side of the camera that you're really thinking about in order to have a good video. I think that is absolutely important when we're thinking about either creating something like you have to coach women who want to really dive into their career, or you're setting up an event. We have a lot of meeting professional colleagues who are thinking about, I'm going to have my annual conference in this virtual world, and it seems so large. What is your advice about who's on the other side of that camera?
I get this question a lot because the majority of the time people think they have like so many people they have to consider, right? Some of our clients truly do have different types of clients themselves. There's this type of client versus that, and they are very different people. But whatever it is that you're doing in that moment, however you have developed this project that is supposed to deliver a message effectively, you want to be very clear on who that end user really is, what they think about, what they struggle with, what they may not even be considering you for because they have no idea that you have a solution for it. That education means meeting somebody with where they are right now. You can only do that if you get familiar with them, if you understand them, if you can really start from their shoes. You can't just assume that they want to know what your product or service is. It's a solid chance that they don't, but they may want to know the answer to a question. You can't find out what that question is unless you're very clear on what that person is experiencing, what role they have, et cetera, personal or professional. So I think that the advice that I have is each thing we do, each message that we communicate really needs to be for a very specific target audience so that they will listen to what you have to say. Everyone's going to say how noisy the internet is now. That's the easiest excuse in the book. It gets less noisy when someone says, I have to watch every webinar talk show with Eliz and Tom because they know me. They know me. And every time I get on there, they have somebody present with them. They ask the right questions that solve this problem that we have. And that's a really special connection. And if you're trying to hack how you have diehard fans, that's it. That's just simply thinking from their situation.
So how do you coach a corporation to be able to do what you just said? I mean, that's easy if you're coaching, one dynamic entrepreneur to focus on who is your avatar and go all in. But when a corporation or a company is putting on some sort of event and you have the CEO's vision and you have the event holder organizer's vision, and then you have everybody else, how do you get everybody on the same page?
Yeah, it's interesting, right? When you have a lot of cooks in the kitchen, but I would argue that pretty much everyone has the same problems. And you could sit down with an individual who's just starting and is bootstrapping and doesn't have a budget and doesn't have to answer to anyone, and they will still hem and haw over the same issues that a large corporation will. And it doesn't necessarily have to be too many cooks in the kitchen all the time. It's that allowance of we want to do it all. My friend Matthew Kimberly explained that really well the other day to my community, the Get Loose Society. This is why we have a target market. It doesn't mean that there are not other spaces on the target board that can still hit. But if we never consider that there is a core audience that help us so well, I will tell everyone about this show. I will tell everyone about this conference because it's changed everything for my business or it's changed my life. When you don't have that core community and it's very vanilla, you really don't have that word of mouth capability that we all really strive for. So I honestly sit down and I completely understand. You got this person, you got that person, you got all this bureaucracy and red tape. Cool. Sorry. Do you want me to help you? Because this really is the answer. And so, of course, things don't always go perfectly and advice only gets taken to a certain level. But I feel like every time you chip away at it and you see things that work, and then you can go back and say, like, look at the small thing we did differently and look what it actually did for you, the positives of it. Imagine if we 10x'd this. I think that's where it can be powerful. It's all about the follow-up in that situation. But you do really need somebody who sees your vision when you're working with them. So they will not meet you halfway a lot of the time, but meet you some of the way.
Well, and I would imagine it comes back to a certain level of fear. I know as a business owner, like I feel the compulsion to like pull in as many different groups that could possibly, buy what I have as possible. But I also know that that's not effective. When I actually really lean into a very specific target market, that is usually when my business grows. I would imagine it's the same for a big business, for an association, any group who might be planning something, to not speak to the masses, but to really confine your target market. I think that's really brilliant. Let's talk a little bit about what you do for the women that you serve. Because I think what impresses me most about what you do is that leaning in to be very specific. It is really like a master class in how to market and do this well.
Yeah, I mean, it's always been hard for me. I can identify with that. It's just like, well, I make videos about productivity. Who doesn't need that? Literally everyone in 2020 needs that now. So it's like, of course, I can say that I serve so many. But what I have learned and what I think most people do when they just can't zero in and they really try to say like, no, I can help realtors and I can help speakers and I can do this.
Right.
You find yourself allowing, let's just say that they're sold, right? And they come in and they're clients. How much can you really be the number one person in your field if all of these different clients that you serve are so vastly different in their work, or especially to them, they think they are very, very different than everyone else. Everyone thinks their problems are different, right? So I really find that it's powerful if, I'm not sitting here rattling off all of the different types of labels that I can help, but I say like, I help realtors. Like you're immediately going to say, I know like 4 of those, and
right.
It allows somebody to get creative on their own for how they can talk about how you help, especially if you're really good at explaining how you help and not rattling off a bunch of elevator pitch stuff that doesn't matter. Being able to formulate how you talk, what you do, super important. But it's even more important that we give people an idea of who you help so that they can start thinking like, oh, I wonder if I know anyone like that could use that information. We make selling ourselves so hard because we're thinking about the word sales so much and we get into our head about it, when we could think about it as how we serve instead and talk about it that way instead. That's the key to it. It's not, by the way, that it's like, all right, fine, I'll take that speaker client. Like, I actually really like what they're doing and I think it'll be fun. You might spread yourself a little thin. You might learn a few lessons, but you don't have to put on blast that you'll take anybody. Put on blast the thing that is easiest for people to communicate for you. Because again, we're trying to get marketing to work for us. We don't have to constantly be in the marketing machine, constantly passing out our business card. Let it be easy for people to explain how you help.
Oh, the wheels are turning. turning, as they always do when I talk to you.
Yeah, I know it sounds counterintuitive, but it really comes down to that confidence, and that's really everything, right? How am I going to be on video? How do I talk about what I do? How do we zero in? We are much more confident when we can really elegantly answer that question. What do you do? What do you do? The number of times we can all probably remember when someone asked us that and we took a big, well, I do so many things,
Well,
and you just want to go into this rant. Make it
I call
simple.
I tell people when I'm coaching them that you don't want to be a comma person, meaning I'm a speaker, comma, author, comma, coach, comma. You can't put all those things into that answer. Is that what
Right.
you're saying?
The bio is restricted in characters. So why don't we just pick one? And guess what? Here's the worst case scenario. Oh, well, I'm not a realtor, but that really sounds like something that I might need. Do you know anyone who works with speakers? Okay. All right, well, tell me what your problem is. Let's see if there's synergy here. Let's see if I could venture into that. But if not, how cool do I look if I'm like, I know the exact right person for that. I know the number one person for that. Let me connect you to that person. You feed that person business. Scarcity mentality tells us, why would I send that somewhere else? The reality is, if that person's a rock star and you're a rock star because you connected them, and then that person knows a realtor, then you got realtors coming. I mean, it's just, take any example you can think of, fill in the blanks. The more specialized you get, the more likely you become number one in your field, or, the number one. Just allow yourself to wrap your mind around, what if I were number one? What would that be? What would that sound like? So that you can build that confidence to zero in on who the right audience is.
That makes a lot of sense. So is that basically the same advice you give to your corporate clients who are trying to create messaging and events to serve their people?
Absolutely. And let's not pretend like there's not the Walmarts of the world and whatever, and the Amazons, right? We used to buy books on Amazon. I just bought like a cookbook holder in my kitchen, and it's like, it's amazing that all the things you can get. There is a difference between having, vertical and horizontal growth of the different offerings that you have in the different target audiences when you have the resources, right? So then you start to see different verticals for different things. Maybe there was a book that you loved and the author came out with one that was a very specific for a specific type of profession, so that they could really zero in on the advice in their own context. It's not that it's not possible for that to be the case, resources being the case. But I think with the corporations, it's just being honest about the fact that, of course, they're not going to be able to get all the way there, but it doesn't mean that it's not something that they can consider for just how to get better. We can only ever get better. And I don't, I feel bad for the ones who really kind of look at their Google rankings and go, wow, we're so big that our competitors are literally listing higher than us for our own name because they are better targeting their ads, or they are better getting the word out because they got really focused about who they serve. And we've just been the big guy for a while. That still happens. You're still going to have a problem standing out even when you have an enormous amount of resources, which is why if you just would have been the number one in the one area to start with, it might have taken you a lot further. Amazon, number one in books, and look where they are, right?
So, Amy, when I think of you, I think of somebody who really understood early on how to grasp using video to really stand out, build your brand, build your career. So for the person who's listening, whether they're with a corporation who's having an event, or they're one of these like high potential women who you help really soar to their highest levels, what advice do you have on really getting down to how to master video?
Yeah, I love that question because, what I said originally rings true. Everyone wants to read into the gear and the products and the microphones and the things and the wheels and the whatever. The reality is, like, if someone just feels like they were sitting next to you when you delivered that content through that video, you've done the job, right? Because the alternative, you could be in the room, right? Someone could be in the room with me. They would be able to see me, they would be able to hear me, and hopefully they would laugh at my jokes, and that would be great. And so that's what you hope for. You can only do that when you truly give someone an environment of, if this person were just sitting with me, how would we talk about it? With having a target audience, that's one hard part. And then there's like, I need to sound a certain way because this is the level of prestige of my brand, and I must let everyone know how fabulous we are. And so I'm going to read every word verbatim because I don't want to screw this up. And ultimately, that's a great way to not stand out as well. It is that human connection, and it takes practice. You should not sit down and film the most important video of your campaign or your website about page on your first try. You should give it a go a few times and just take it easy. Start with your smartphone when you think it's fun to share a cute video with a relative of something that's happening in your life. A lot of us are doing that in 2020 because we can't see a lot of our friends sometimes, our family. Just as relaxed as you might have that conversation, maybe pep it up a little bit, use more professional words, and less four-letter words and funny things, but just be natural. I think that's the point, right? Be natural about what you're saying. We end up putting a big wall up when we act like we are above someone. We don't even mean to come off that way. We're just trying to do our best, and we feel we need to over prep, and we feel we need to read a teleprompter, and it actually just adds distance that we already know is there because we're looking at a screen.
Well, and that's kind of one of the things I know that Eliz and I both do when we work with clients and companies. We're trying to encourage people to use more interviews and less talking head over PowerPoint. And one of the statements that I make to clients is, remember, conversations don't have scripts. And really, that's what you're saying for an individual who's doing a video. It's a conversation, and you shouldn't be that scripted. Am I right on that?
Absolutely. Absolutely. And for me, every video that I create, or a podcast that I create, or a blog post, I have to look at everything not as like, what do I want to tell everyone today? That's not what it is. It's, what question am I answering today? That immediately puts you into a much more conversational mindset, right? Like, okay, everyone that says, I don't know what to make content about, blah, 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 blah. Okay, well, survey your audience. I don't have an audience. Okay, that's fine. Go watch someone else's content who has the exact same target market that you want, and look at their comments and find, pound F or whatever it is, Command F, question mark. Just look for any question mark in the comment section. Where did they not close the loop? What can you answer? Maybe you can answer this more elegantly. Maybe you can do this more elegantly. If you had this community and they were throwing questions at you, which is one of the beautiful problems of having an existing audience, many of us do, whether it's because we're already a big brand in general, or we've worked toward building a thought leadership platform, look for the questions. If you want to know what the audience wants from anyone, and it can be you, find out what their questions are. When you enter a piece of content, a video, a podcast, a blog post with that mentality, like, I am here to serve because so many people have this question, just answer it. And that will really, it's always helped me be able to sit in front of the camera, because that's just something innate in me. Younger, I thought I was going to be like a news anchor someday, because I was like, these people know everything. I got to be one of those people, because I love telling people things when I find them out. I can't help but deliver and like get rid of all the information I've learned to the people that I know, because if it'll help them, or if it's interesting to them, or if it makes them laugh, I have to give it to them. So that's sort of something just that was built in me. Being able to say, I know the answer to that question was the biggest catapult towards sitting in front of a camera and just like answering it.
And Amy, you may have given a little nugget there that I want to make sure that people pick up on. And that is, if you don't have the audience asking the questions, who's the big gorilla in your industry? What questions are they being asked? And what questions are they not answering? That might be the smartest marketing tip that I've heard on this show in a long time. People, need to go back and think about what you just said.
Because we like to complain about how loud the internet is. It's like, oh man, everybody has an opinion, and everybody's, go find out what they are. Because if you are really trying to market, this is just psychology. So if you get to find the comments that actually are questions and could potentially lead to a constructive conversation, use that, leverage that.
Well, and I think that relates directly to what our meeting professional colleagues and even our HR professional colleagues are dealing with right now. Their people have questions that need to be answered. If you are designing an event or an experience that actually answers those questions, of course, people are going to want to come. They're going to want to pay for the opportunity to be there because that's the information they want. I think that's really brilliant.
Yeah. I mean, that's the best part is I said realtor earlier, but I had real estate clients early on in my business. And it was so simple to come up with what their content strategy should be. I was like, you get emails from some current clients, a lot of potential clients who haven't quite bought with you yet, but like, you never know if they're going to slip away to somebody else somehow. If you answer the same question via email 10 times a day, which a lot of realtors do, right? Like, do we list it high or do we list it low?
Right.
You have a standard answer to that every single time, and you want to give that answer as elegantly each time as each client deserves. Make a video and say, hey, love where your head's at on this. I actually made a video about this in less than 3 minutes that is going to answer this for you. Check it out. So now not only do you have marketing working for you, you've got customer service. And you scale your time.
So Amy, I wish we could talk to you all day long, but
yes.
I know that you have other places to be. And so if somebody is watching this and they're like, I need to know more about Amy, how do they find you?
Absolutely. So I help women to find their full-time freedom, especially those content creators out there. That's all at gatlu.com. It's very complicated. I made up a word. I'll spell it for you. It's GATLUW.com. Stands for how to go after the life you want. And if you are interested more in the corporate video production and streaming, you can find us at aftermark.com. Again, made up word. AfterMarq.com.
Nice.
Very good. And we'll put those in show notes so that people can find them.
I like to make it very complicated.
Yeah, well, thank you so much. This has been as enlightening as I expected it to be, maybe even a little bit more.
I try.
It's really great. Yet another example of why maybe going beyond that droning on over PowerPoint for your event is a good idea. Let's shake it up. Let's do something really incredible.
I love the purpose of this show. You guys are awesome. Thank you so much for having me.
Oh, it was a delight. We will be back next week, but not on Monday because both Tom and I are serving clients next week. But we're back on Wednesday with a special guest. And Tom, you want to tell?
You go ahead.
Oh, it's Ross.
Oh, Ross Bernstein is next Wednesday. Wow, that came up quicker than I thought. Yeah, Ross is an amazing speaker who speaks more than just about anyone I know. And he has been working really close with his clients, helping them realize all the reasons that they can't cancel their events, that they have to do hybrid or virtual. And we're going to talk about some of what he's learned with probably like 50 clients since March.
You can find us at webinartalkshow.com or on Facebook at Webinar Talk Show. Amy, thanks again for joining us. We'll see you all next week.
Thanks.